Good afternoon, my friends. This is Patrick Allmond from StopDoingNothing Media, the creator of Playmakers. And for a long time, people have asked us to create a video about how to get HighLevel and ClickUp working together. Now, full disclosure, you know what? There are already apps in the App Store to do this, okay? I came up with my solution before I never knew there were apps in the App Store. And I really like my solution because it just gives you a lot more control over how ClickUp and HighLevel talk. In addition, my solution, if you're someone who's wanting to know about how to work with APIs and HighLevel and other tools, then my solution is a good way to learn it. So not only is it going to show you how to integrate HighLevel and ClickUp, but it's also going to show you the basics of how to make API calls, get responses back, things like that. So what you're seeing on your screen is a typical HighLevel setup. We're in the ClickUp snapshot. By the way, there is a snapshot for this, so if you wait until the end of the video, or if you watch all the way through, I will give you the snapshot of all of this stuff so you don't have to copy and paste it, okay? So we're in the snapshot. At the same time, we're over here in the Stop Doing Nothing ClickUp world, okay? My hierarchy in ClickUp is one I learned a long time ago, which is I have a workspace for clients, I have a folder for each client, and then I have a list for each project. Your organizational structure may be different, but that's the way mine is. And so all this is being built with that structure in mind. Again, space, folder, list, okay? So the first thing we have to do inside of HighLevel, or the automations we need inside of HighLevel, of course, you're going to find here under automations once you get the snapshot, and they are really easy to understand. You need to create a ClickUp folder within the workspace, right? So when you get a new client, here's an example of how I use this. When somebody purchases a plan from us, one of our high-level consulting plans, the first thing we do inside of ClickUp, hopefully I won't get these two words confused back and forth. The first thing we do inside of ClickUp is create a folder for them and then a single list where we can immediately start dumping tasks that come out of our onboarding meetings. So you got to create a folder inside the right workspace. You got to create a list inside of that folder, and then over time you're going to create tasks over and over inside of that list. Now, of course, you may have multiple lists, you may have multiple folders. That's no big deal. These are all settings you can change in here. But for the purposes of this demo, we are going with one workspace, one folder, one list, okay? So the first thing you have to do, oh, by the way, there are also some custom values here that you need to work with. First of all, under custom values, and again, you're going to get these with the snapshot. Hopefully I'll remember to hide some of these numbers on here, but you need your ClickUp API token, which you can get in your ClickUp backend. You need the space ID for the one that you use for your clients. I have one just for clients there. You need a folder ID, a default folder ID, and a default list ID. The default folder ID and the default list ID are used in cases where you may have a default folder or list of general admin type tasks. So let's say in each of your sub accounts for your different clients, you may have tasks you create for that sub account for that client, but you as an agency, because I'm an agency, right? You as an agency also have a default folder and a default list where you may want to put some administrative tasks, okay, like lead, follow-up, things like that. So you've got 4 custom values you need here. And then over in custom fields, and again, you're going to get these with the snapshot. Over in custom fields, I've got a folder called ClickUp information. Over in custom fields, you basically have variables where things are stored as they're on their way to ClickUp or when you get responses back from ClickUp, okay? Ignore the chat ID one right here. This is one I'm experimenting with. Shouldn't be a problem for me to get it, and I will finish up the snapshot when I have it. But there is an API call inside of ClickUp for you to send messages to chat. So just like you can use an API to send messages over to something like a Slack channel, you can send them over to your chat channel also, okay? So now let's go back and look at the actual automations, and then we will actually run through the automations. So the first automation that you end up calling when you want to create a new folder is just called create ClickUp folder. And what this is, simple gunshot call is what I call it, to the API that I got right out of the ClickUp API documentation, okay? If you Google ClickUp API documentation, just like when you Google high-level documentation, you get all the API calls you're ever going to use. I have a client space ID, which is set inside my custom values, and as you can see, that's substituted right here. So it's slash space slash the space ID right there. And then your token, your API token is going to go right there. Fortunately, I variablized all this for you. And down here, you can see that the name of the new list, excuse me, the name of the new folder is just going to be the contact name. You may want to make this a company name or something like that, so it goes more along with the client information, okay? But in my particular case, I use contact name. So what does this mean? This means that if I come over here to my test contact, let's go up here to my test contact and execute this real quick. We're going to go to Patrick Allmond test. We are going to proceed to add that to create ClickUp folder in my default workspace inside of ClickUp, correct? Oh, we're just testing. We should not have to put that in every single time. So create ClickUp folder. Bam. Should take 1-2 seconds. Hop over here, look inside, and there it is already. Okay, there's the ClickUp folder. It's instantaneous. It should almost be pretty much instantaneous. So once you have that folder, then what you want to do is you want to create a list. Okay. Oh, take that back. Let's come back here for a second. And this is why this is a useful lesson for API calls, if you will. Once we create the ClickUp folder, we actually store that folder ID in the custom field. So the cool part about the HighLevel giving us these custom, this is an advanced webhook. You have the simple webhooks and the advanced webhook. In an advanced webhook, what you can do is once you make that API call to create the folder, you can get that response back and save that. So here's a previous test you can see right here. You come back with a folder ID, and then this second step right here saves that folder ID in a contact custom field, which is very similar to what's going to happen next inside of creating a list. So let's go over to list because we have to have the folder before we have the list inside of ClickUp, correct? Correct. Same kind of thing. Create the ClickUp list. So make the list call. I use a default one called wish list for new clients because that's just like a dumping ground that we will then reorganize later. Again, here's the API token, and then here's that folder ID that was saved from the create folder step, okay? So we've got those two pieces of information, and just to make sure, let's go back to our contact, and let's make sure we have what we think we have. Contact, there we go. Ignore some of this stuff. This was from previous tests. Okay, but the folder ID should be stored right there. That's folder 7581. Let's make sure that matches right there. Folder 7581. Yeah, there we go. By the way, if you're ever in ClickUp and you want to see what your ID information is right here, you can always usually look to the end of your string right there. For example, you'll see that 901 7581, that was my actual folder ID right there. Okay. So go back. So there we go, 7581. So I know that worked correctly. So I'm going to save that. Didn't have to save it. I was just clearing out some other stuff. So that's the folder ID. So now let's go create the associated list now that we have a folder ID. So create folder. Whoops, Patrick, slow down. Create list. Create list. And again, we're calling the create list action for ClickUp, and then we are storing the information in the list ID, okay? So let's come back over here to our contact. It's okay, ClickUp, you just take your own sweet time today, and we are going to create that default list called wish list. Create list, Patrick testing. Add automation, bam, and it should go pretty quick. So now what should appear is bam, you saw it right there. The wish list under the default folder, the wish list under the snapshot testing workspace right there. But of course, there's nothing in there yet, right? That's our next step. But if I'm not mistaken, over here in contacts, we should have a folder and a list ID right now. So there's the folder and there's the list ID that was created inside the folder. Two very important pieces of information. Now what we do to create tasks, this is the part you'll be doing over and over, is we fill in these two fields right here, temp task name, temp task description, and then we call the create task, okay? So inside of your automations for various things you're doing, you're gonna create test task names. You're gonna fill in these two fields before you call the action to create a task. So in this particular case, I'm going to say testing task creation for high level badasses. and put that in the description also. These don't have to match. You can put in whatever you want. And of course, since you're inside of a high-level automation, when you update these with a high-level automation, you can actually stick in variables like information about the contact, about the task being created. So I'm going to save that real quick. Normally, you would not do this manually. Normally, this would be inside of a workflow. I'm assuming you guys know the difference. So inside of the automation now, we're going to call create ClickUp task. Now, this one's a little bit more extensive because what I do is I check and see if that list ID and that folder ID, if that information is blank, then I use those default values I have set over in custom values, okay? So it's almost like the system folder and the system list, if you will, versus the client folder and the client list. But I want to check those things first just to make sure, because we can create a task and not have a folder ID and not have list ID. And the way I've set this up, it'll go into a default list, if you will. So once I know that my list ID and my folder ID are all filled in, I come over here and I call the process to create a task. Okay, API token again. I know I've got my list ID and the contact information. Make sure we're doing custom post authorizations, your API token. And then down here, just the task name and the task description. And of course, these are all fields here that you can update. And if you look at the ClickUp API documentation, I'll provide a link to that also. If you look at the ClickUp API documentation, you'll see there's all kinds of things you can do. And someone had asked me in the group is actually, can you apply a list template? And the answer is yes. There's an API call to copy a template over to a list, a templated list, which is a big part of ClickUp, over into a list. That is also possible, okay? We're not going to do that today. So let's go back to the contact and let's create a task. I don't know why I jumped in here. Hey, I'm all over the place. Add person to create ClickUp task. We don't need that. Add that. Hop over here. And now, hopefully, if I did my job right, there we go. There's my folder I created. There's my list. And then there's my task right there. There you go. That's all you really need. And like I said before, there are apps in the App Store to already do this, but if you're someone who likes a lot of control, then this is going to be the route you're going to go. If you want the snapshot for this, I'm going to put this on the screen also, okay? The snapshot for this is going to be able to be downloaded sdn.1/ what did I say it as? sdn.1/ClickUp snapshot. And I'll put that on the screen for you. sdn.one/ClickUp snapshot. That will get you the custom fields, that will get you the custom values, and that'll get you the automations there. Okay. And as I update that snapshot, you should be able to refresh that automatically. Now in the future, I'm going to expand this out and you already saw some placeholders there to be able to send chat messages inside of ClickUp Chat. If you don't know, ClickUp Chat is basically a replacement for Slack, and I absolutely love it. And if you're using the other kind of project management tools like a Trello or like a Monday or something like that, to tell you the truth, these calls are probably very similar. You just have to get the exact detail of the calls from their API documentation. And again, if you have any questions about this, please shoot them over to me. If you haven't done so, please go watch some of the other videos on YouTube. And also, if you want the snapshot, it's sdn.one, that's my link shortener, sdn.one/ClickUp snapshot. I'll put that on the screen. Hopefully this is going to be useful. If you're not a ClickUp user yet, do me a favor, please become one. It's an amazing project management product. And yes, HighLevel uses it internally. Hopefully this has been useful, and I will see you during the next video. Take care.